So this is the letter from this person here. It reads like this. I'll admit it, I hate confrontation. I'm the kind of leader who always tries to preserve harmony and keep things positive. But lately I'm starting to see the cost of that. There are a few people on my team who aren't meeting expectations, but instead of addressing it directly, I find myself dropping hints, hoping they'll get the message. But they don't. Then I'll get frustrated. And by the time I do say something, it's more emotional than it should be. I've tried using the feedback sandwich method where I start with something positive, share the criticism, and end on a high note. It feels respectful and kind. But a team member came away thinking everything was fine, even though I tried to raise a serious issue about this, about his attention to detail. Is my feedback too diluted? I know I'm doing them a disservice by not being more direct, but I worry I'll come across as harsh or they'll take it personally. How do I get more comfortable with difficult conversations, especially when I'm wired to keep the peace?
The problem with the shit sandwich, right, is that people just um, don't take the good side of it seriously, and so it comes off sometimes as so it sends wrong messages, or sometimes just comes off insincere. So it's like shit sandwich. What people will say is that I know you I I know you work very hard on this, but then the bad thing. What does work hard mean? Wow, that's not real feedback, So you kind of like signal to somebody that working hard is good. But again, how do you tell what is working hard and what is not working hard? Right? So that's what we do, because it's not because we're not applying it properly, because we're just applying because we're afraid of confrontation, so we just want to say something nice first. Instead, like, make it a real situation. Like, yeah, say, given the last minuteness of this, I like how you, and that this wasn't planned, and how this crisis was thrown you. I like how you acted on the, and took these following steps to address it, to minimize the damage done. You know, that being said, I think even with these things, I think this is what we could have, we could improve on, or your ability, or the fact that we did this has led to this problem. Like, we have to make sure that it's material, and this is the same even if I do it like kids, raising kids. You know, if you always, like, even when I praise my kids, right, I want to make sure that I praise them for things that are material and real and measurable and binary. Actually, the key is just binary. It happened or it didn't happen. You know, I I don't praise them for I praise because you work hard or you practice so hard for this. No, I never praise them that. But I'll say, like, I like that you didn't give up, even though you joined so many competitions and you lost so many times, but you did not give up and you kept going. You know,
I, I've got a point of view about this, the sandwich method, right? I think a lot of times there's this concept called building the emotional bank of somebody, right? So I think there's this research that's done. I think it's something that they say that in order for you to give effective critical feedback, you need to be able to encourage or praise this person like 6 times, if not mistaken, 6 times before you can give one effective critical feedback in this case. And I don't mean by saying 6 things at the same time, six good things, then you say the one bad thing, right? But I think it's just stretched over time. So it's kind of like catch people doing right. So you build the emotional bank so that when you need to withdraw, in this case, then it doesn't feel that that it's always about. I mean, it's much more effective, lah. Let's put it this way. So I think the sandwich method does work, but I don't think it is during that time. But you need to be able to build, like, kind of stretch it over time to build the emotional bank. That means catch them doing right and be very specific, like you said, be very binary about those kind of praises, right? So that the person will feel confident and so on. So when the time comes, to give difficult feedback, then the person will also take it much more effectively because you have already have deposited enough praise to that person. I've seen before parents where just by probably raising their finger or just looking at them, immediately the kid will just like, okay, I get it, right? And I think that's quite interesting, because I know of some parents because they uh, when the kid does something right, they will actually encourage them and be very specific and to praise them very specifically. In this case, but when they do something which is not right, in this case, the behavior is wrong. Just by kind of like looking at them and just by raising a finger, they immediately get it, so that you don't have to be like shouting at them and so on. Is that how you approach your kids as well?
Yes, but like it's sometimes it's not that sometimes it's that's the great thing about like managing people, right? There isn't or building relationships or giving feedback. It's never just one thing. For example, right, how you would give feedback to a new hire is very different from how you give feedback to somebody you've been working with for 5 years.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
huh? It's very different, right? Because after a while, right, if you're working with somebody for 5 years, you've already built a certain trust already, one.
Right.
Assuming that you trust well, huh? Don't talk about that, like you assuming that you have in that 5 years built relationship that you have proven not just by words and feedback, but by action that, hey, I personally care for you, I've got you. Then you don't even need a shit sandwich. Then you
Yeah.
just say, can you do this shit? You know what I mean? But if you don't have the trust, then it's different. Lah. It's like if you have a very good marriage, right? And you have tested over and over again that I'm there for you, right? Then you should just give the feedback outright. But if you have a relationship after 10 years, 20 years where there's a lot of resentment and everything, you can get the smallest fucking thing with even a shit sandwich and it doesn't fucking matter because they'll just focus on shit rather than the good thing in that shit sandwich. Right, huh? So that's why it's about trust, and trust is built by consistently caring and choosing to trust, choosing to place your trust. You see, and that's why like shit sandwich, SBI. Actually, what SBI and shit sandwich and everything. It's like a plaster, right, to replace a trust or respect deficit. It's effective for people you don't have trust with, lah, or don't trust you yet, lah, new hires, lah, which you can't help, lah, right? But ultimately, the end goal you got to get to is that trust, lah.
Okay. Okay. So let's say, like in this case, so what I'm learning from this conversation is there is actually a difference between, like you said, someone which has you have emotionally invested in them for maybe a couple of years versus someone who's new. I realized that I think it is when will it be a case? I'm just curious. A case of, let's say, because you have invested such a long time with this person for, let's say, for example, 2 3 years. One of these managers, for example, one of your senior managers, do you think it's more difficult to sometimes give that feedback to them versus someone who's new, right? Because you do not want to come across as, not being liked, example, right?
It depends, you see. So, okay, so my manager once told me this. He said, yeah, I know I have to choose. Can I actually be a friend or a boss? Right? And that's the always on and debate. And I'm like, I don't believe that. Why do you have to choose? Why do you have to bucket your relationships into a specific category when everyone's relationship is unique and different? Right? You can say a friend, right? But you have a huge variance of different types of friends and friendships, right? How do you bucket them into things? Who's forcing you to bucket them? Right? Why can't you just be this person? Why is not saying that my relationship with Kausern is as a boss? Instead of just saying my relationship is with Kausern. You don't have to choose, and the truth is that I you I like there are friends that you wouldn't work with, what? You hang out with every day, you drink anybody, you cannot work with them, one. Right? And there are friends and there are colleagues that you just cannot, you just don't hang out with on weekends, and not that you don't enjoy the company, you just don't for whatever reason, right? But you know that you can count on this person because The difference with your colleagues, right, and your friends is that your relationship with your colleagues is tested every day at work. Some crisis happens, something happens, some opportunity comes for them to push you under the bus, but maybe they don't, right? But your friends' relationships are almost never tested. So is friends a more desirable thing than colleague or boss?
Mm.
I'm not so sure. But do I even need to categorize them? No. Why can't I just be in my relationship with this person is like that?
Before we come to a close, I just wonder what was your approach to boss and friend thing? Has it always been this way? Was there a time that it was quite a mesh together, right? It's like, oh, then it's like when it becomes a bit complicated, the boundaries are blurred. Then you do not know how to be a boss in this case. Was there a time that was like that, and then somehow over time you came to the conclusion that every relationship is unique, like you say?
Yeah, I think it's the recent 7 years. I think since I started calling it 5 years or something like that, that I
Yeah.
started really looking at it that way. That that look, we, like I used to in my nothing days, I used to feel like, oh, I need to be friends and everything, and then my colleagues go out and they don't call me, I'm like, hey, why? You know, maybe that's good enough. But now I'm like, oh, you go out and they don't call me. It's okay, good, have fun. I'm not insecure about our relationship.
Mm, mm.
I know it's unique. I know that what other people may offer you is very different from what I offer you, and I'm not insecure about it lah.
What changed, if I can ask?
I think it's just I think I just started to personally care for the people I work with. And when you personally care about that someone you work with, then you start putting your own thoughts or desires,
Mm.
um, not necessarily secondary to theirs, but in context of theirs. Like yeah, they need this and everything.
I
And
think I can relate to that because I went through that journey as well. Not exactly the same, but more of like my definition of caring for somebody has changed, and that changed the way I approach friendship in this case, friendship slash workmates in this case, right? I think previously for me, caring is equitable, or equates to being nice. That was my issue. That means, oh, I have to be nice. I have to be nice to them, then they can be nice to me, because there's this innate desire to want to be liked in this case, right? So then to me, that is like, oh, that equals to me caring for them because I just want to be nice to them. But over time, I think the definition has changed because caring for somebody can also include having tough love for that person as well, which means that I will do whatever it takes because I care for you, and certain things which I say I will not sugarcoat it because I know it's best for you, right? So that has changed, like what you said, the definition of caring has kind of changed for me. So because of that, then now I'm able to be much more direct and open when giving feedback to somebody. Of course, not being rude, but being direct with them because it's actually good for them, I'm not worried about what they think about me because I care enough for them. That's why I want to give that feedback. Because if I don't care about them, I won't even bother to give that feedback at all.
I think it's we I think it's I think it's okay to always be nice. I think that you can give feedback while being nice. Um, but I think more importantly than nice is it's actually not about nice or not nice, but it's always just about being like respectful and having empathy for that
Mm.
person. I mean, I have a friend that like recently did something very bad, right? And he's down for it, and I also told him, hey, bro, what you did is damn fucking bad, but I'm here for you. I get it. You're caught up in that moment, but okay, let's just I'm here for you anyway, and let's
Mm.
just solve. But just know that what you did is bad, lah. Do you know what
Mm.
you did is bad?
Mm.
you know.
I think this is where again, feedback sometimes come across as a bit too personal. Because like what you say, I know that what you did is bad, but that does not make you a bad person. I think this is where we sometimes talk to kids as well, right? That behavior that you did is bad, but that does not make you a bad person. So there is a need to be able to differentiate that in this case. So I think this is where if we were to use the right kind of feedback methods in this case, of course taking into account that there's this trust issue which sometimes we forget, right? So we just jump straight into like you said SBI. These are all just methods. I think what's important to recap is that there needs to be trust which built over time, because the feedback that we give to someone we know for 5 years versus someone we just know for 3 months or 5 months in this case is very different in this case. So and the feedback needs to come across as binary in this case, and because when it's binary, then you are addressing the behavior and not the person, right? So when you like I think back to the earlier question as well, the earlier letter you says that, oh, you're not creative, because the person may feel very personally attacked, because the person's value, for example, personal value could be I'm a creative person, and then when someone says you're not a creative person, the person will feel very attacked in this case, right? But to be very specific, like you said, to be very binary regards to giving that feedback.
But also, look, one thing to keep in mind is that our thoughts are constantly evolving, and we're also constantly improving, right? So what I think is the right way now may not be what I think may be the right way in a few years' time. And it shouldn't be lah, because we should always be growing lah. We're never at a know-all period, whenever we never hope to reach stagnation lah when it comes to growth, right?
Got you. Anyway, thank you very much for being on today's episode. I think I need to probably hear some of these things and capture some of these notes again, because I think some things that you said has actually kind of challenged me a little bit about, especially when it comes to the whole area of building trust over time, and the kind of feedback that we give for someone who is, that we know for a few years versus someone who we just recently know, is going to be very different in this case. I think sometimes I'm too caught up with the techniques of giving the feedback rather than actually spending time on building that relationship.